Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in this video, we are going to be reacting to this JGigs video called Maybe I'm Wrong About Raid. I'm curious to see what JGigs says here, for a couple different reasons, and about once a week or so, I want to take a look at the landscape and see what other people are thinking, what other people are saying, and see where I agree and disagree. Last week, I reacted to Murder Inc., talking about the new CEO change coming to Plarium soon, and had a lot of fun doing that, so let's take a look at what JGigs is saying here. Maybe being wrong about Raid. I know that he's really into Eternal Evolution, and he's had some negative things to say about Plarium and Raid, and maybe we agree on a lot of the stuff, and then I'll give some context as to maybe where I feel similar or different compared to JGigs. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so I'm gonna run a little bit of a dragon in the background while we're watching this. And first of all, I'm gonna link to JGigs' channel down below. This guy is probably the most overall talented person in the Raid Shadow Legends content creator community. The guy is insightful, smart, based, funny, is insane at rapping, does really funny skits where he plays a bunch of different characters.
Which reminds me, we hope you guys are enjoying the Torm infusion, because we have a lot more Okay, I know I'm not the only one that hears that.
What?
The fire getting louder. I keep feeling like I'm gonna have to yell to talk over it. How do you not hear it? And I think it's getting hotter. Ah, shit. We here at Plarium want you to know that...
Why are you yelling?
Am I on punks or something?
No.
What is happening?
You keep stopping.
Okay, either you need a hearing aid or I need to be locked up, because there's no way there's nothing going on here. You're telling me you don't hear this fire right now?
No.
All of this going on right here, you don't hear?
I don't hear it.
Okay, maybe I need to put the drink down. Let's take it again.
Dresses up, does music videos, so his channel is an insane amount of fun. If you don't know JGigs, if you're new to Raid or something like that somehow, definitely go check him out and throw him a sub and all that. I'm gonna link to it down below. So let's see what JGigs has to say about maybe being wrong about Raid.
I was watching the UFC fights yesterday, and there was a couple of times where John Anik read a Raid ad, which felt kind of odd, honestly. For me to like play Raid as my job ultimately right now. I don't know, for some reason that just felt really weird, but I saw there was Raid Shadow Legends like banners in the cage and like on the mat, and they kept doing Raid ads and playing Raid commercials, and it got me thinking. Because I've said a couple times, if they don't pivot, if they don't start treating the players better, etc., they're gonna die. And I think ultimately that's got to be true. To some degree, that has to be true. But I think it should happen sooner than it apparently is going to happen. Because when you start to think about the amount of money in a deal, like a partnership with the UFC and Ronda Rousey, that's like on one of the grander stages of marketing. You know what I mean? Obviously it can get higher, but that's pretty high. That's a pretty big number partnership.
Yeah, for sure. And I always said back when they first kind of announced this that it was a genius move by Plarium, because you're reaching kind of a new market. Because, maybe the average person that's into the UFC or, is really into fighting and all that type of stuff, they might not be introduced to Raid Shadow Legends. They haven't done a whole lot of marketing in like the athletics type of space. So I thought it was a great opportunity for them to expose themselves to a new market of player with a very likable and popular person like Ronda Rousey in a sport and a market they haven't been exposed to yet. So I thought it was a genius move for them to step into that arena. And like JGigs is saying, it is probably a super pricey deal, because that's about as big as it gets. That's like a mainstream American sport there in the UFC. So yes, it was definitely a pretty crazy marketing strategy, but I think a smart one.
That is not the type of partnership that a dying franchise or game would be able to make. You know what I mean? I still think that on principle, like in theory, ultimately, I think I am right. I think that this can't be sustainable. but it must be for longer term than I want to give it credit for. Like, I'm right about them being shitty. I'm right about the game not being in a good place and apparently not heading to a good place anytime soon. All of those things I think I'm still correct about. But like I said, if they don't make some changes, this could be a rough year for them. Apparently that's not true. Apparently money's still pouring in. You know what I mean? You would have thought... I don't know what ended up happening ultimately with the Russian player base. I know they banned them for a bit. I don't know if the Russian player base found a way around that. I don't know if they lifted the ban. I don't know what's going on with all of that, but I would have thought that would have hurt them quite a bit.
Okay, so I'd be curious to see why Gigsy is so confident on like the like negative train on why it's like going to die, because we see that nothing's really changed in the past. I mean, you know, Raid had its kind of normal when a game releases and it hits its honeymoon phase and then it levels off right here up at the top, you know, in like towards the end of 2019 or whatever. But usually what we see on some of these games is they start to kind of do this and really filter off. But Raid has done a pretty good job of holding serve and maintaining. So I think he might be maybe leaning towards thinking that it's like a future type thing, but then he's saying that he's actually maybe wrong about that, or maybe it may be a longer time frame, because if Raid was going to be dying, that we probably would be seeing them pull back on some of the outlandish marketing deals like partnering with a UFC. And then he talked about the Russia-Ukraine thing affecting Raid, and it definitely did in some regards, but I don't know that it affected like the worldwide popularity, because I believe that happened in February of 2022, which would be right in here about. Would have been about when that stuff started, and we definitely saw a little bit of a dip after that, but then it kind of recovered the rest of the year, and it's been mostly fine in the last 12 months or so with all of that going on. So yeah, I don't really see the catastrophic failure that he's talking about, but I think he may be arguing that it's going to start soon if we don't see a different direction. But hey, I would love to pick JGigs' brain about the new CEO, and if he thinks that we could see that chart start to go up again instead of just going flat or even going down like he might predict.
But apparently not. Again, apparently not. They seem to be thriving. And I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. That was a really interesting, like, an interesting thing to see. I remember when I first got to Australia, I was out one day and I kept seeing Diablo Immortal ads. This was not long after Diablo Immortal had come out. And well, I guess it was a little bit of time after it came out, but it wasn't super long after Darth kind of became the Diablo Immortal creator, right? He's kind of the main Diablo Immortal creator at this point. And I remember thinking, that's kind of neat. Like, I'm seeing banners for this game on buses and billboards and shit. And like, I'm friends with the main creator for the game. And then now I'm seeing Raid ads in the UFC. And it's like, I'm one of the guys. I'm a relatively notable name in Raid Shadow Legends at this point. It was interesting. But again, also interesting to think about the fact that like they must be thriving, which again gives them probably no reason to think that they need to do anything different. I said I left a message in the content creator chat the other day, because a couple people had mentioned what was going on, and I left a pretty like scathing message that a lot of people.
I remember seeing that he did, and a lot of people kind of left an emoji agreeing with him and stuff like that. So I know exactly what he's talking about.
It got a few reactions. I'll just read it to you. It said, "It's hard to imagine they aren't intentionally bad at this point. The 4th anniversary is a total joke, somehow worse than the 3rd. The difficulty of fusions is all over the place and seems to have nothing to do with the quality of the champ. Not to mention, after 4 years, we're still just doing 2 rounds of the exact same events for every fusion. There's no continuity behind how many shards a guaranteed champ event cost, pack value is awful, etc, etc, etc. At some point, they'll start losing players faster than they can buy them / trick them into playing with fake ads." Um, I left that there for Plarium to read, kind of intentionally. That was really more for Plarium than anyone else. And I think it's a sentiment that a lot of people share. It is almost infuriating, honestly, that the game is doing so well. Considering how awful Plarium is, it's frustrating to see them succeeding so well. It's the equivalent of watching a YouTube channel who constantly just lies in their title and thumbnails, doing millions and millions of views every video. You know what I mean? Or like fake prank channels, or you know what I mean? It's the equivalent of watching someone like that be successful. Someone with no integrity, no... You know what I'm saying? It just bothers me, which is strange because it benefits me that it does well. Obviously, the better Raid does, the better I have an opportunity to do in this space. But I almost would just rather them fail at this point. On principle. Obviously, I don't want my fellow creators to like lose their jobs or have that taken away from them or anything. What I really want is for Plarium to stop sucking so bad at this.
I mean, I don't really fear like the losing your job kind of thing. There's always going to be something that fills that void. Like if Raid dies, the people that are creative enough to stay in the scene and produce good content are gonna find a home. And it would be up to them to innovate and do that. But like gamers aren't going anywhere. If Raid dies, gamers will be playing something else. They'll be hyped up about something else. A new company will fill the void and want to take that market share. So I also think that most of what he said is based. You know, that ultimately, you know, they're going to do what the market dictates. If the game is growing, if the game is doing well, like he said, you know, there isn't going to be much of an incentive to adjust things. If they look at the charts and the metrics and things are going up, it's just kind of how it's going to work in the real world. But we all agree, obviously, you know, we're players just like you are. You know, we would like some interesting anniversary events and some of the things that he addressed. We would for sure be behind that stuff happening and we do fight for the community behind the scenes. We're always messaging them and providing them feedback that we're hearing and doing all that. And I do share some of his sentiments, how it gets frustrating at times because it doesn't feel like that stuff is listened to. And the unfortunate part of the real world is the metrics are going to dictate what happens and not really the emotional feedback. It's going to be the raw data.
From our perspective, from a business perspective, apparently they don't suck at this. And that's, I mean, we've known that. We've known they make a lot of money. But I kind of thought it must be slowing down or something.
It's actually, sorry to add another thing, it's actually exactly the same as Diablo Immortal. Diablo Immortal was insanely toxic in terms of how it was received by gamers and content creators and everything. It was the most mainstream hated a game has ever been that I can remember. And it was a massive financial success. Like the company itself is going to look at Diablo Immortal and be like, it's like a top 50 game of all time in revenue. That's a dub. So, you know, ultimately that's what's going to dictate stuff. It's not the people raging on Reddit. It's not the content creators flaming the game. It's ultimately going to come down to, we invested this much money to make this game, and it made this much money in return. So this was our revenue. Was that a success or a failure? That's ultimately, unfortunately, that's all that is really going to be measured and all that matters. If you're new to Raid, you know, back in the day, there was a 1-star review bomb that was organized of Raid Shadow Legends, and obviously that got Plarium's attention, and they were starting to kind of reach out and be like, you know, what's happening? Why are you all doing this? Because all the content creators were like pushing that and stuff. And it was Plarium's most profitable month that they ever had in Raid. So yeah, that's what he means by like, I'm not even sure how much of an impact that had. You know, we spent all this time to organize this rallying cry, and it was their biggest profit month ever. So yeah, it was definitely funny kind of how that worked. Yeah, I don't think like the content creator community review bomb like was the determining factor in them changing the CEO, but it could have been a consideration. It could have been a part of the equation. They could have been like, what is going on? Why are the most dedicated players? Why are the people pushing our game the most feeling like this? Maybe we should consider bringing in new leadership that can shake things up. It could have definitely been part of the discussion. I think that's mostly a fair take. Yeah, I can give some context on the packs because I grade them daily and have built all sorts of calculators and stuff. He's dead on. He's right. I would say like in that window from a year ago to 2 years ago, somewhere in there, we were seeing a pretty regular influx of decent packs. Not amazing. I mean, obviously, you know, it's never going to be the best money you can ever spend in your life. But we were seeing, in relation to what we typically saw, better value. And we were getting more often of some of those really good packs where they grade out as like a 3.0. And it's like a no-brainer buy for anybody that's a spender on Raid. We were seeing those a little bit more often. But he's right. In the last like 5-6 months or so, the offers have really contracted in terms of how often we're getting really good ones compared to how we were about a year and a half ago. So he's definitely dead on there.
They keep bringing out new events, but it's really the same shit we've been doing with a different user interface. It's really not anything new or innovative. I don't know, man. The only thing they're doing good, in my opinion, is the champs that they're putting out are pretty good and pretty interesting. Like, they've done a pretty good job of coming up with new ways to introduce hits and kind of introduce new mechanics and stuff. I think for the most part, they've done a decent job at that, which is something that's pretty difficult to do. So it makes me think there's competence on some level somewhere. Somewhere someone understands this. It's hard to imagine that they are focused on making the game good overall. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, honestly.
I would say he's right, but to add on to that, I think another thing that they've done a pretty good job on, not perfect, but better than they were, is the promotions. You know, the Ultimate Death Knight promotion, where they had a bunch of different content creators that they plugged in game, and they released like a really funny, cool champion for free to the community for logging in and bringing in new players with a cool character that they were making funny clips and commercials about, and then like the Ronda Rousey promo, diving into a new market and bringing her into the game as a champion. I think they've been doing better in the last year or so with some of the promotion type stuff and trying to interact with the community more often than not. But I would just throw that in on top of what he said about the new champions and stuff.
It's a very confusing candidate. Still, in all my years of playing these games, it's the most confusing overall. I've seen some confusing shit too. Awakened Chaos Era is up there. Awakened Chaos Era is kind of an enigma. That'll make you sit and think for a while. Calibria was odd. But I don't know. For Raid to
Oh goodness, I don't really know what he means. I wish he would have elaborated on that a little bit, on why Awakened Chaos Era is such an enigma. Like, maybe he's arguing it should have been bigger than it ended up being. It just didn't launch with enough champions. You can't launch games with 65 champions. Raid was such a success because the gacha element was so much fun that it launched with like 350 champions, and everybody was like, "Whoa, how do we like who am I collecting? Who do you have?" But in games like Awakened Chaos Era, when everyone's using the same 4 champions, it's just and there's not enough diversity in the champion pool. It just we need a game to launch like Raid and have hundreds and hundreds of champions right out the gate with the fun collectors aspect of everybody interacting with each other. And I would say that's why that ended up happening. And then he talked about Calibria. Yeah, that was an interesting one. I mean, I remember JGigs and I did a collaboration on Calibria. I thought that game had potential, but again, it ended up being one of these side games that just can't quite do it. It just can't quite break that glass ceiling of being a true competitor that brings as much to the table as Raid in terms of the whole package, with the aesthetics and the amount of champions and the marketing and the whole machine to be a true titan in the gacha industry in the same kind of element as Raid. I know we have other ones like Genshin Impact, but it's not like Raid in terms of how it plays and how it functions as kind of like an auto battler champion collector.
For Plarium to behave the way that they do and make the decisions that they make, and to be so successful in a manner that seems to just continue to scale up, I think might be the most confusing thing I've seen in all my years of playing these games. And it's pretty frustrating to watch, honestly. I don't know. I guess I just thought that was interesting to talk about for a little bit. Let me know. Did you watch the fights? Did you see the raid ads? What did that feel like to you? I don't know if it feels the same as a player, like as it does as a content creator, but it was kind of strange. Not negative, not a bad thing. Just.
Okay, cool. So it looks like that is JGigs' video, which, by the way, I will link the source material down below. Definitely go throw a like and a subscribe his way, because Gigsy's awesome, and he's always got some good raid content. He fills a good role in the community, doing some of the skits and kind of keeps things lighthearted, and also is always there to give the based takes on things that should be happening in game. But I know JGigs is more into the fighting scene and like the UFC type stuff, maybe than most of us. I'm kind of a casual observer. I usually end up seeing like the highlights and stuff, so I haven't seen personally like a Raid Shadow Legends ad in a UFC fight, but I've had friends that I know that have messaged me like, dude, I saw a Raid Shadow Legends, because people in my life that know that I cover Raid, I have gotten messages from people like, dude, there was a Raid sponsorship on the UFC Octagon and stuff like that. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out and how 2023 goes, because I think overall, if anything, they grew in 2022, which is amazing for a game as old as Raid. So, the things to watch are we going to finally see a true competitor that could really start to bite a chunk out of Raid? How is the new CEO going to affect things? Are we going to see a change for the better, a change for the worse? Are we going to see small changes, big changes? That'll be something to watch over the course of the next 2 or 3 months. Will we even notice that there was a CEO change, or will it all be behind the scenes type of things? And how are they gonna come up with a way to evolve in 2023? In 2022 we were seeing things like the Hydra. Well, the Hydra may have even been the end of 2021, but anyway, what are they gonna come up with to keep innovating and keep the player base growing as a whole, so that it doesn't start to go down, and at least maintain things? So yeah, thank you, JGigs, for sharing your take, and I always appreciate hearing from you. And like I said, about once a week we're gonna see what's out there in the community and react to a video, and then talk about where we agree and disagree. So yeah, let me know your input down below, and what you think about Gigsy's sentiment, and then some of the things that I talked about as well. It would mean a lot if you subscribe on your way out. I'm always doing my best to keep an eye on the Raid community and how to play the game efficiently as well, with daily content and all of that. So thanks for watching. I'll see you soon in the next video. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.